Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and this week we are going to start tackling the seats of the Alfarrari. Alright guys, welcome back. Those watching last week will have seen that I started working on the interior of the Alfarrari, putting in the carpet and showing you the colours that I've chosen. If you missed it, I'll put a link up above so you can catch up. And as always, please like, subscribe, hit the bell, do all those things. It does help the channel out. Thank you to all of you who commented and really liked the interior. It seems like overwhelmingly people are very happy with the colour choice of the interior, which is fantastic. Again, it's Quoio, which apparently actually translates to mean leather. So it's actually leather-coloured leather, as some of you have mentioned, maybe more accurately translated as natural colour leather. So it's almost, you know, the same colour as the as it naturally is. So that is the colour. That's what Ferrari calls it. Is leather. So it's leather-coloured leather in the Ferrari. Only other couple of things, there were a few people mentioning that there's not a lot of room for a dead pedal in the Alfa, and that is true. It's just the width of the tunnel. Even with the smallest gearbox I could get to do the job, there is very little room there, and yeah, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to have to put a dead pedal in there, but that's just how it is. If I'd put in something big like a T56 or something in there, there is like, I probably have to put the pedals outside the doors to get my feet in there. Anyway, moving on, this week it's time to start tackling the seats. So if you've been following the build, you will know that I have decided to keep the factory seats in the car. There's a few reasons for that. I have changed seats over in the past in most of my other cars. In Harry, my 911, I made the mistake of putting fixed racing buckets in the car, and even though I've removed the rear seat and put a cage in it, if I ever travel anywhere, most of my luggage space is in the space around the cage in the rear seats, and getting anything past the fixed racing bucket in a two-door car is very difficult to get a bag in there or get even just like a helmet or anything into the back of the car. It is definitely nice having seats that still tilt. And another reason is that these seats are just really cool, particularly the headrest on the Alfa is just, it's this really cool bit of timber that is sort of curved, and yeah, I really just like how different it is. So I really wanted to keep that and keep a bit of the essence of the Alfa, but yeah. These seats are looking a little bit tired, so I think first things first is we need to start stripping them down and yeah, see what they're like underneath. So I start by completely disassembling the seat, and then I go through and cut the hog rings and start pulling the cover off. It was made extra difficult by the fact that somebody had glued down the base to the base of the seat, so I had to cut the whole thing off. Alright, so I managed to get the first seat apart. I found it's very difficult to get this headrest out. You have to sort of pull the whole back of the seat apart to actually remove it. There's a screw inside apparently, but as it is, I don't actually need to remove it, so I'm going to leave it in there. These have been retrimmed before, and this has new foam all over it that actually doesn't look too bad, and but the base was very flat and had the cover stuck to it, and it's not looking that crash hot. So I think first things first, let's pull apart the second one, and then we can start having a look at what I'm going to do about making these a little bit nicer. All right, so I've trialed sitting in the seats, and as I said, it doesn't have a lot of bolstering. So what I'm going to do now is I actually got some foam. I've got a bunch of stuff from Manny at CCU Auto Trim, who's an old friend, who's a motor trimmer, and he definitely helps putting me in the right direction. This stuff is actually quite firm, so I actually have a couple of different foams that I got from him. This stuff is very soft, so it's a similar thickness, but it's much softer, so you wouldn't want this hard foam as the base of a seat, because it's it doesn't have a lot of give, but it's perfect for bolsters. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trim and make this edge on either side of these wings nice and a nice flat surface that I can then cut out a profile onto this hard foam and then glue it into place to build my bolsters up, and then I can sort of pad and adjust it from there. What I'm going to do to trim it all out is I actually went and got myself a like a electric carving knife. Actually watching Fanatic builds on his Triumph TR6 he was doing it the other day, because he's put Mazda MX-5 seats into his build, and he had to do some adjusting of the foam. That reminded me to go and grab one of these, and it was surprisingly hard to find, but yeah, anyway. This is good for foam because it has two blades, so it goes like this and it doesn't sort of tear the foam around when you're trying to cut it. It just sort of it slices it almost like fine scissors or like a brush cutter or something like that. So, all right, I'm going to start marking out and trimming out and see if I can build some nicer bolsters. So you can see that I start making a rough shape that I'm looking for, and then I cut it out with the electric carving knife, and then transfer that over to a second piece so that I have the bolsters the same on both sides. I soon worked out you need to make sure that the bread knife is extremely vertical, because it's quite easy to cut on an angle. You can see I've traced on the width onto the original seats, so I can cut out a chunk just the right size to fit my pieces into and get a nice flat base to glue to. And now a bit of test fitting to make sure that they're comfortable, making sure I do the same to both sides. All right, so I drew out an initial shape and then cut out a couple of flat strips out of the edge of the seat in the width that I need, and I've just sort of sat them in there for now. They're not glued in or anything yet, but by sitting them in there, and I went back and trimmed backwards and forwards till I got a shape that I'm actually feeling is actually quite good. I might just keep tweaking it a little bit, but by having a rough shape, I can take this same template and then copy it onto the other seat and make sure they're the same. But at the moment, the backrest is actually feeling quite good. It hugs me around my waist, and I had larger wings at the top at first, but because they don't sort of flare out a lot, they were sort of digging into my shoulders, so that wouldn't be comfortable on a long trip. So I've sort of toned it down, but I'm making it a much nicer feeling seat. This is going to give me much more bolstering. Particularly, it might not seem like it at the moment, but by gluing this in, and then once I actually have the leather trim over the top, it'll actually provide quite a bit of support. It's on its way, so let's keep refining, and then we'll do the same thing onto the other seat. All right, so after a bunch of playing around, I have got my leg bolsters in and my sort of side bolsters, and it's much better fitting, better feeling seat now than it did before. But obviously I can't leave it like that. It's too square and straight and all the rest of it. So I want to fill in some of these edges and fill in some of the shape just so that it blends a little bit better. So now it's time to start tweaking, adding some foam, gluing bits on, seeing how we can go about making this a little bit more of a flowing shape. So here you can see I'm using a range of different soft foams to fill in the extra spaces and just carving everything to a rough shape and just trying to fill out the shape of the seats the way I want them. Alright, so I spent a lot of time then going around and adding extra foam into all of the edges and stuff like that, and just roughly getting it into shape. I know lots of people have asked me in the last episode what glue I used. I've mentioned it before. It's not sponsored. This stuff is insanely expensive, but it works very well. It's called Tensor Grip T65 is the stuff I use, but yeah, it's hideously expensive. All right, so now I've got the rough shape here, but it's far too blocky and not very nice. I'm going to get the sander out and the DA out and start just shaping the seat to feel a little bit more flowing and look a little bit nicer. So here I'm using the DA sander with 40 grit sandpaper, and it takes a fair bit of time. I found that actually just having very light pressure was the best way to go. Heavy pressure actually just would make the foam vibrate and wouldn't work very well. And you can see here that partway through I woke up to myself and actually put a mask on. Now I go around and started drawing on where I want the different panels to be. All right, so you can now see the idea I've got for the interior. To sort of blend in with that Ferrari style, I'm going to go with a Ferrari Daytona style interior. I've marked it out now and marked out roughly where the panels go. You know, there's a bit of stuff that I'm sort of working out as I go, but that is the basic shape ready to start making some patterns. And that means I need to get out the vinyl, and I've got some sort of scrap vinyl that I'm going to go through and start laying out and trimming out perfect pieces to fit into each panel so that I can go away and eventually make it out of leather. So making the patterns is a very time-consuming process, but basically I'm laying a piece of vinyl over where I want my panel to be and then trimming it until it perfectly fits to the lines that I've previously drawn. And once I've done one, it's the same process for each and every panel. All right, so you can see I've started with my patterns. I've got the center in here at the moment, and now I've started on this side panel, and I'm making a pattern out of my sort of vinyl material. I've got just some cheap vinyl that I bought, just to make the pattern, to make it exactly the size of what I want each panel to be, not including any overlap or anything like that. And what these little marks are around the place is actually telling me where I need to join the two panels together. So when you're sewing, I need to have to make sure that these ticks line up with each other around on the two pieces that I make, so that I get the pattern to come out exactly the way I've designed it. So I've been pinning them together. You can still see these coloured heads of the pins I'm using, just to hold it into place so that I get a reasonable idea that they're going to be the right shape that I need. So this is definitely the most elaborate patterns I've had to make. A great YouTube channel to check out if you want to learn things about automotive upholstery is Ketchaflow. I think he's a Mexican guy who does fantastic trim work, and there's some really good videos that sort of go through and give some ideas of how he does bits and pieces, which I use quite a bit. So anyway, let's keep pattern making. And here I'm carefully cutting out the panel and realising that I cut it the wrong way around and have to make it all over again. All right, well, that's actually taken me 2 or 3 hours of work to actually get this all together. It's actually very time consuming, but I've just sort of lining up with the lines that I drew on my foam underneath, and then made the pattern so that it all ties together. You can see all these join lines so that when they're all lying down on the table, I know where to join everything together. So that's all looking good, and that pattern is ready for me to take off and cut it out of the leather. And now I need to finish it off with doing the seat base. All right, that is really, really time consuming, but really quite rewarding. I mean, I'm even just looking at these seats, just with the patterns pinned onto them, they really look so much better than the original seats. All these bolsters and everything, like, they actually are looking like really nice, comfortable seats. And like sitting in them, they are really comfortable. There's these nice, big, firm bolsters actually makes a big difference in sitting in them. So that is the pattern, at least for the driver's seat, done. But like always, that is all the time I have this week. So I think it means it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Ferrari began the 1998 Formula One season with a brand new car, the F300. Strongly resembling the previous year's F310B with a narrower track and different side pods. The F300 was still aerodynamically inferior to Mika Häkkinen's McLaren, who took an early lead in the season. Schumacher managed to fight back, taking his 6th win of the season at Monza to get back to equal points with Häkkinen. That was as close though as Schumacher came, with Häkkinen taking out the next 2 races and the championship. 1998 did have some interesting updates, with Ferrari running the X-Wings until they were banned. Ferrari fielded the F399 for the 1999 season, and things were looking up, with Schumacher taking out 2 of the first 4 races and teammate Eddie Irvine taking out another. Unfortunately, Schumacher crashed and broke his leg at Silverstone, taking him out for the remainder of the season. Irvine put up a great fight against Häkkinen, winning another 3 races that season, while Mika Salo did a decent job filling Schumacher's seat. Irvine narrowly missed out on winning the championship by 2 points to Mika Häkkinen, but Ferrari did manage to take out their first Constructors' Championship in 16 years.
Oh, I actually really enjoy doing the trimming side of things, and I'm really loving the colour combo and getting things together. I would love to start this engine, but as I've mentioned in previous videos, I'm still waiting on that diff, and until I get the diff back, I can't get it on its wheels, and I can't start it until I get it on its wheels because I need to get it off of the dolly, which is in the way of connecting up the dry sump tank. So it's still taking time, but I've got plenty of things to keep me going.
I'm just glad to have my kitchen grater back in the kitchen where it belongs.
You mightn't have seen that, but I did try and use the kitchen grater to to sand some of the foam, which is what Manny at CCU Auto Trim uses for some of his stuff. But I didn't find mine.
I don't think our grater was
it didn't
great
work that.
for that.
I like what you did there. There's nothing wrong with a good dad's joke.
Yeah. Like, subscribe, let Jeff know about your comments.
Yep.
I mean, like him, Patreon if you want to follow him a day early, no ads, woohoo, and support him in his, I was going to say another great
crazy escapades.
His great adventures. Oh, God, I can't stop.
All right, guys, we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
From the start.
Oh, what was happening?
The microphone wasn't on. The receiver wasn't on.
We've
got both microphones.
So this is your fault?
Yes.
Right. With Schumacher taking out the first 2 races of 4. No. Ferrari fielded the F399 for the... No, what? Huh? Ferrari fielded the 399... You get a prize, you get a prize, you get a prize. It's not a teaching moment.
It is a teaching moment.